Right, we're rolling. On this podcast, we'll be talking about different areas of business and all things marketing. My name is Dave Doyle.
And I'm Dave Alton. This is Social Antics, another marketing podcast.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Social Antics. We took a bit of a break, Dave.
Bit of 2-week hiatus.
You were busy.
I was busy. I wasn't busy at all. Well, no, I was busy. To be fair, you were busy starting a business, and I was busy grading paper.
I'm not starting a business. I'm the back end. I'm not starting the business.
Your partner is after starting a business.
She is. Yeah.
It's been a very, very busy, and the last week was just out celebrating Leo or Mihal or whoever's in charge these days. The pubs are reopening.
Oh yeah, good man. Yeah, good news. It is actually starting to open up a little bit, and I know you're fed up with me saying that.
The restrictions now are. I was down around the Docklands there on Saturday, and sure there was no lockdown. Might as well have been in Torremolinos.
I've seen every bit of sun there down on the quays in Cork. The amount of people out, with their. I'm actually amazed. They're all drinking out of unbranded cups, but I actually want to know where they get them. They're not normal size cups. They're not see-through cups. They're like big white pint-sized cups.
Yeah,
I don't know
but
where.
see,
I've never seen them before.
None of the alcohol brands want their brand on them because.
And
obviously, we're not meant to be drinking.
And the pubs don't want to know who's supplying, or in terms of, they don't want to be the one seen to be supplying everyone.
Oh yeah,
well.
100%. Like, yeah. The importance of unbranded, like, it's interesting. But
it's definitely, I think I even heard a figure today that's down on last week or the last 2 weeks. The PUP, the pandemic payment has been seriously dropped in terms of figures, like it's only in the hundreds of thousands in the next couple of weeks. It's going to start dropping off because people are starting to go back to workplace. They're starting to open back up. I've even heard that people are starting to plan going back into the office again. And the thing is, people don't want to go back into the office. A lot of people are enjoying working at home.
No, I think a lot of people do want to go back into the office. I think.
Do you want to go back to the office?
Absolutely. Get me back into my office now. 100%.
Why though? What? Like, well, I suppose it's different for you though, because there's a good bit of atmosphere around the college, I suppose, as well. Like,
like I work in the best place in the world. Like, UCC is a great campus to work on. Like, if I was going back into a,
will I pull that bit out and just make sure I advertise towards the boss in UCC?
But I mean, look, ultimately, right? I think there's a fundamental difference in the type of work that people do at home and the different generations and how they can fare at home. So, for example, if you're at home and you've made your money, you've got a nice house out in the countryside, you've got your own home office, then working at home is probably a gift for you. You're probably working a lot less. You can balance work-life balance a lot more with your partner and so on and so forth. If you're a bit younger, you want to go into work to socialise with people. You want to go for a couple of pints after work. You want to meet people. You don't want, and as well as that too, like if you take my office environment, my office is in my bedroom.
Yeah,
I don't want to be working in the same place like that I'm sleeping. Do you know what I mean? There's no break, like, That's
probably a luxury. Probably there's some people's probably like Harry Potter under the
stairs.
There's
some people, and I've seen it like lecturing and stuff like that, and they've nowhere to lecture because their partner is possibly working in the same place, and it's very hard to get the job done. Like, do you know what I mean? So no, I think there's depending on the type of work that you're doing and depending on your wealth and depending on what generation you are, what stage of your life you're at, working from home is great. And to be honest with you, like, I was talking to a guy recently enough. The guy runs kind of a 75 million plus business, has done for years. Started off going, this is a disaster, I'm not going to be able to keep an eye on my employees. I like going into work. And he loves it. Absolutely loves working from home, spends more time with his family, kids, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of people who do enjoy it, but I think there is a lot of people screaming to get back into work. And I think, like, someone said it, I can't remember who it was. It might have been Pat Phelan actually tweeted it a couple of days ago, is that, are we working from home or are we living at work?
Yeah.
And that
there's no shut off.
There's no shut off.
Yeah,
and I even find myself now that before, if it hit 7 or 8 o'clock and one of the lads said, oh yeah, do you want to go for a drink? I'll just go, yeah, whatever, I'll finish this tomorrow. Whereas if I'm at home, I'm just working because there's nothing else. There's only so much Netflix that you can burn through on any given night.
And as you said, someone that's in, maybe shared accommodation where it's not your own house in terms of, you're not wandering around or have different rooms, or you have a room that you can lock. As you said, you're in shared accommodation, so your office is in your room or whatever, and you're kind of just confined to that room unless you're going down for a cup of tea, basically.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. So I am looking forward to getting back to the pubs, and I'm looking forward to getting back onto campus.
Plenty to look forward to.
Exactly.
The last episode we had Mr. Ryan on.
That was a long time ago. It's a lot happened since then. We've come through a pandemic since then. Trying
to remember back that far, but no, it was a really, really good chat with Stephen, and I could probably speak for both of us in terms of we always enjoy chatting to Stephen because we're all kind of on the same page, I suppose, in terms of what we're doing locally in marketing and stuff. So it's always good to chat to Stephen.
Fucking speak for yourself. No. To be fair, what's great about talking to Stephen is that.
Sorry, we do work.
That's it. Yeah. What I love talking about Stephen is that Stephen was part of that, and I hate the phrase, but that kind of digital revolution where there was a big transfer of where companies were investing their resources in terms of traditional media, PR, billboards, bus shelters, newspaper advertising, television advertising into digital. And then he went to the second wave of that, then where it was still digital, but it moved from kind of more organic into more emphasis being placed on paid. So going through, and like I do a session on it with my students every year. It's usually the first class with the final years and with the master's students, where just doing a case study on how much things have changed in the last 10 years. And it's important that we kind of, as marketers, strategically think about not just what is important in the here and now, but what's happening into the future. And I would always say that, like, if you're a brand where you're going to be targeting kind of Gen Z, you're going to be talking about the younger millennial market, you should be absolutely hammering TikTok at the moment. There's not a lot of brands on it. There's not a lot of brands doing a lot on it. But if you can build an audience now before it's saturated, you're going to have a huge competitive advantage in a year, 18, 2 years time, when everyone else is trying to get on it, but they can't because the whole thing is saturated. So I do enjoy listening to Stephen and the different roles that he's had, and always as a marketer, but how those roles have completely been changed over the last even 10 years, Yeah,
no, true.
So go listen to that episode. Get our ad revenue up. I want to
revenue.
Ad revenue up. What, did you not see the loan application that went in last week? Yeah.
That's it. We'll be moving into a new studio. Hopefully
we will. Yeah, soon.
So tell us, what kind of news popped up for you maybe this week?
Before we get on to news, I think there was one thing that I just found very, very interesting for people who are interested in kind of marketing and stuff like that. There's a new documentary on Hulu, which is obviously not available in the Republic of Ireland.
I never heard of what?
Hulu.
Yeah,
so it's the American version of Netflix, basically.
Pack the crisps.
So those are Hulu.
Oh, sorry, that was a chair.
Fucking idiot. So basically, it's a documentary about a company called WeWork. Now, anyone who doesn't know the story about WeWork, watch this documentary. It's the absolute definition of having a company that has a very, very strong brand, but no substance whatsoever behind the business model supporting that brand. And this brand or business basically grew to being about a $49 billion valuation, and in the space of a number of weeks that collapsed down to $10 billion when they were going for their IPO, and people started looking at the business going, this doesn't make any sense. Like, usually when you're looking at a valuation of a company, you do it based on EBITDA, which is basically earnings before depreciation, tax, so on and so forth. So they were creating their own metrics. So it was like community adjusted EBITDA, which is this idea that we're going to take all of the expenses out of the profitability ratios that we're showing to people because community is an intangible part of our brand. Insane stuff altogether. And if you just look at at the start, they had quite a good business model because it's all about co-working, basically. It was the first real company to get into the kind of co-working space in a major way after Regis, but they kind of really kind of latched onto this whole tech startup, entrepreneur, freelance kind of culture that came with Fiverr and all these kind of companies as they started to emerge. And it's an incredible... the CEO is basically, the definition would be like a financial psychopath. Like, had absolutely no grasp on business concept whatsoever. And again, this very, very iconic figure, very, very well spoken. You'd follow him into battle kind of a thing. But he was running this business that was built on sand effectively. And it's just the story of this incredible collapse of a business. And he walked away $1.7 billion as a payoff from SoftBank and their Vision Fund, who basically bought out WeWork, for want of a better phrase. So it's a really, really interesting story of just a chaotic business and a chaotic business model, but still grew to $49 billion in valuation. And we know from looking at the hype around cryptocurrencies, tech startups, which are far overvalued, the likes of Uber still losing $6 billion a year and still worth whatever, $64 billion. You know, these incredible stories of if you have tech or you're associated with tech, your valuation just far eclipses. The old style of how we would value businesses has gone out the window effectively. So fascinating documentary. So I'd recommend people read it or watch it.
So send in a direct message and you give them the old dodgy link, is it?
Oh yeah, 100. Every day of the week, no problems at all. Or you can join my. Sorry, no, I can't say that. I do not give my students illegal materials to watch.
Disclaimer.
But there was one, like, just to give a sense again, just one story that came out of the documentary, which I thought was just incredible. So they had a town hall where they basically laid off 7% of the overall workforce, the global workforce. And at the end of the town hall, they basically said, and now to celebrate us cutting these costs, there's a free tequila bar waiting for you, and here's Run DMC. Like, it was fucking
That's
incredible.
The kind of company you want to be fired from.
Incredible. Someone said it that the company culture was like Fire Festival that worked for the first couple of years before it went absolutely off the rails entirely.
I'm way behind. I still have yet to watch that one. I haven't watched
it's incredible. You're only about 3 years behind.
I know, really, yeah. It's gone too late.
I'll send you the illegal links on as well.
Yeah. I think something we both kind of copped on during the week was the Kantar. Kantar basically, you know, for anyone who doesn't know, it's basically, what's the best way of describing Kantar, Dave?
They have so basically Kantar, one of the world's biggest kind of market research insights firms. And they basically have the Kantar Creative Effectiveness Awards, and this year it was won by Heineken.
And robbed by every other company. For anyone that has not seen it, watch it. I think it's a grand advert. I
thought it was very clever.
No, do I think it's worthy of, what was the title it got? What was was there a specific? It basically got best ad of the year.
Creative effect. Yeah, it's the best ad of the year. Yeah.
It's not like it's basically.
By Publicis was their agency.
No, I think so. Basically, it was going down the route of
reversing gender stereotypes. So they had this scenario whereby there'd be a girl and a guy at the bar, and the waiter would come out with a big kind of a cocktail and then a bottle of Heineken, give the bottle of Heineken to the bloke and the cocktail to the woman, and then they'd swap them. And the same thing would come out, a salad would come out, who would automatically give it to the woman, and then they'd flip it and all the rest of it.
The bottle and the cocktail drink came out about 10 times. It was just the same thing over and over, and you just know after the first one, you know what's going to happen. And then they kind of done the roll the credits thing, and then they done the salad with the burger at the end of it. But I just thought, look, it's a grand ad. I just didn't think it was worthy of the best ad of the year.
But it's lowest common denominator, right? Like, I mean, if you look at one of the main things in pop culture at the moment, it is the gender stereotype thing. Now, we're all sick to death of it, and the kind of politically correct culture and all the rest of it. But ultimately, what some of these brands, and Heineken are very, very good at it, is that they take something which everyone's talking about at any particular moment in time, and they turn it into a relatively humorous kind of an ad, and they push it out. But all of a sudden, people are interested in it because, one, it's Heineken doing it. Whereas if you had a local brand, you would have kind of a middle there, so or they're copycatting stuff. Whereas because it's Heineken, they've got so many ad dollars behind it. That's really, really effective in terms of what they're trying to do. So I thought, in terms of like, I mean, if you look at beer ads in general, and we remember the Carlsberg ads from back in the day, which were brilliant. The kind of the man fridge and the best apartment or housemates in the world.
Was Carlsberg done the Irish abroad, basically, the Irish speaking?
Yeah.
Was that them?
I think that was them. Yeah. Cluas Boher, Colleen Banya, that one. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. But like a lot of like beer branding has gotten really, really boring recently, and I just thought that was it was an interesting portrayal, and it was simplistic, but simplicity is good because people need to understand it. A lot of brands overcomplicate their message, and because of that, they win loads of awards at Cannes and all these festivals because the film critics love it, but the actual consumer doesn't like it, or they don't understand it.
That's a different side. That's more down the ads in terms of the long form content, probably in terms of the more storytelling kind of adverts. That's doing that kind. But that's what we talked about here before, that a lot of ads or a lot of brand and content is going that way. It's only kind of these kind of companies that are still pumping out the 20-30 second little adverts and getting a clear message in there.
Yeah, I know, but I think for them it's more. I think we get very marketing commentators, and we're all probably guilty of it. We're very guilty of saying like, or being binary. This is right and this is wrong. And this is the way marketing should go. In reality, it all depends on your business model, your target consumer, what channels you're good at. Like Heineken are already one of the biggest brands in the world. All they need to do is maintain awareness and the identification that people have with their brand. Like, I mean, I remember being at a talk a number of years ago with the managing director from Heineken, and he basically, it was a marketing conference, like, so he wouldn't say this normally, but he basically said Heineken is a marketing company who happens to sell beer. Like that's what they are. So their whole mission, same Coca-Cola is a marketing company who happens to sell cola. So like, I mean, them keeping brand recognition and awareness, and like, look, with a lot of SME startups, outside of that kind of corporate world, you're basically looking to maintain your market share or increase it by like 0.1% a year. It's different. It's a different world. Like,
I can't remember who was having the conversation. It was only a week or two ago, and someone was saying, like, you know, when it comes to, as you said, the likes of Heineken or Coca-Cola or Nike or any of these, Nike I should say, I would say Nike, Nike. What's the point? There basically, there was the kind of, what's the point in them advertising? Like, everyone knows who they are. Like, you know, we kind of had this conversation about, as you just said there, you know, about keeping the brand aware, but, you know, becoming the number one choice when people go out. Like, you know, and there is an argument, you know, should they do as much as they're doing? But yes.
Well, they're for identity brands, it's important. For Nike, it's really important. We've seen since they started the social justice stuff, their market share is really, really after improving. Their sales are improving. So I think, again, it depends on the environment there. But again,
it was an interesting conversation in terms of from a person. This person in particular was not involved in business or marketing or anything like that, and they were just looking from a customer point of view, and they were like, "I'm sure everyone knows Coke. Like, what's the point in them even putting out an ad?" You know, it was that kind of conversation that they were having. Like, you know, it was interesting to hear what they were saying. Like, you know,
yeah, but it's the difference between, it's not that everyone knows it or not, it's that when you walk up to the fridge and you're met with Coke and Pepsi, which one do you pick?
Exactly, and that's what I was saying. Yeah, it's about keeping it in the eyes of the public, basically. Yeah, brand awareness. So in terms of, you're talking about logos and stuff there, during the week,
when was I talking about logos? You just made that up.
I said we were just talking about logos and brand and all that. I didn't get to finish it, by the way. I just sent you on before we started there. I sent you on a couple of logos to have a look at.
Fuck's sake.
This is one homework. This is one you can participate in at home.
press the red button.
Press the red button. No, I just thought it was fun. I was actually listening to Dermot and Dave on Today FM during the week, and they were talking about, I know in a couple of weeks we're hopefully going to have someone on in terms of branding and design, but they were talking about kind of hidden messages that you might have never seen in a couple of logos before. I'm not sure if you've seen this one, so I'll start off with kind of the basic one that we all probably know and seen. So Amazon, do you know what they're showing with the arrow there? So anyone that's looking at it, so
A to Z.
I knew that one anyway. That was okay. Go on to the Toblerone one. Then this one blew my mind. So Toblerone logo, the famous chocolate bar. Yeah. Have a look in the mountain there. Do you see the bear?
Yeah, I've seen the
I've never seen that before, and that blew my mind. I can't look at it the same again now. And the FedEx one, there's a little secret arrow between the E and the X.
Yeah.
I've never seen these before.
Don't you lecture marketing.
I thought this was outstanding.
For God's sake.
It blew my mind.
The FedEx logo was after changing. They changed that. A couple of weeks ago.
Did they?
They've changed a couple of weeks ago, yeah.
I thought this one was a shit one, but basically the Toyota logo there that I sent you, all the it kind of, it's meant to be the way it was made up, but basically the logo has all the letters are in that icon of Toyota. I didn't really see it, and there was another one. Then it was the famous Domino's logo. The story behind it was that, so there's one and there's a two, basically the number one, number two, and the domino. When they opened the first store, they done one. Then they opened the second store, and you know it was number two, and then they were going to do 3 and 4, and obviously they blew up and they couldn't do it anymore. But that was basically where the domino effect, came from.
It's it. Logos to me are very, very interesting. I think people sometimes can overemphasize the importance of a logo. Again, when you're talking about forget about the iconic ones, Nike and all that. Forget about them, right?
It's just insane shit altogether.
Oh, exactly. But I mean, like the logo is important depending on what you are. So if you take Gym Plus Coffee, for example, their logo is really, really important because it's on the clothes that people are going to wear. It's an identity based brand
without having the name kind of associated.
Whereas if you take Irish Life Health. Describe their logo.
I can't think.
Having a clue.
Yeah,
exactly.
having a clue.
And it's the same with the majority of like if you're wearing something, then it becomes really, really important. Or if it's a consumer package good brand where again the identification is really, really important, then the logo stands out. But I think people over-egg sometimes the importance of the logo. Like I mean, even the
I think once it becomes like, as you said there, you mentioned Gym Plus Coffee, and we'll come on to them in a minute, but it's no matter what the logo is, yes, there has to be a bit of design, a bit of talk on into it, and creativity and uniqueness. But in terms of whatever it is, you make that what it is. You make that associated with your brand.
Yeah,
so
but
that's very
it
important.
needs to be contextual against the competitive space that you're operating in, right? So, for example, I'm going to plug one of your brands here now at the moment, Velo, right?
One of my brands.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Sorry, your one brand.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. At the moment, so if you look at coffee as a category,
Yes.
all of the packaging is dark brown, purple,
Brown, reds,
black,
purples,
reds,
black.
etc.,
Yeah.
etc. Ye went for white and blue.
Yeah.
Immediately, ye stand out on the shelf, and people are going to pay attention to what ye are. If you were called Velo Coffee and it was the same
Black bag, yeah.
it's going to be very, very hard for you to differentiate yourselves against your Nescafes of this world who are just dominant in that particular space. So similarly, if you like, there's a meat brand that I'm involved in, and again, what you're looking at is if this brand was put in a fridge or in a shelf next to all of the other competing products, would they stand out? And would it draw the eye, one, and then once it draws the eye, is there something there that is going to make that brand stand out over your competitors that allow you to capture market space? So, like, the logo is important. I'm not saying it's not important, but it's the overall logo within the context of, again, the business. And I'm sure people are sick of me saying this because it's basically like a non-answer for every question. But just looking at a logo and saying, oh yeah, that's a nice logo, without looking at where that logo is going to be placed, or where it's going to sit in packaging, or whether it's going to be on clothing, or where it's going to appear and what it's going to appear against, it's kind of a bit of a dud conversation, because the majority of logos that you see are fine. Do you know what I mean? There's nothing going to stand out. There's nothing iconic about them, but they're not that bad either. So it's the overall context of the business that you need to kind of look at and need to analyse.
There's a lot of work goes into starting to creating it, but as you said, like some of the little niggly bits of them can be overthought. So it's about what you do with it when you get the end product.
Yeah, like I think, like I know we're getting Paul in a couple of weeks' time, but like I mean, I bring Paul into my students every year, and in fairness to Paul, without giving away the goat somewhat, but I mean, he talks about when you're talking about constructing your brand identity, it's all about your mission, your purpose, how that is then disseminated through content, logo. So again, people often, I mean, it's the classic, you ask someone, oh, what's a brand? Oh, a brand's a logo. No, it's not. Like, do you know what I mean? It's so much more than that.
Yeah, it has grown from that. I think, which one of them is it? A brand is not. It's not just a product. It was Jeff Bezos' thing, wasn't it? Your brand is not it's not a product on the shelf anymore. It's about the stories you tell and all that kind of stuff.
That was sick.
Yeah, I think I mixed two of them there.
You've mixed up two bald fellas. When did you mix up me? I could have said that. I'm bald.
No, we're not that far ahead yet. But no, it is more about the content, the stories you tell, and then looking at today's way of marketing, we already talked there maybe about Stephen in terms of moving from traditional into digital, but it is literally the whole brand, whatever platform you sit on or whatever avenues you use, that it all ties into the same style, the same imagery, the same, the colours, the feels, whatever it is, it all has to tie in. But you mentioned there about Gym Plus Coffee, and I think they're up there in terms of marketeers.
Got Niall Horton.
That's what I was going to bring up. Yeah, they've Mr. One Direction now investing in them, which was
that's some scoop. Like, fair play to lads.
It was out of nowhere. It was literally they just launched a video with Niall Horan walking in, sitting on a chair and going, I think he just went, hell yeah, and that was it. But I think it's an unusual. It's not that it's an unusual move, but I think it's a great move for them.
I think it's genius. It's absolute. Like, I know the guys. I've heard them speak. I don't know them personally, professionally, or anything like that. But I mean, one of the hardest things to do now when you're go up against your Under Armour and your Nike and your Adidas, and like, I mean, this whole idea. I mean, they did Business 101, which was what's the new and up and coming product category. It was leisure wear, which is kind of your combination of sport and kind of casual. really clever concept of the gym and coffee. They don't have anything to do with fitness. They don't sell coffee, as they classically say. But it encapsulates that whole idea that people want to associate their lifestyles with now. I kind of want to keep myself fit, but I'm a bit social as well. I don't want to be a complete gym bunny, but I don't want to be just a complete social animal either. I want to be somewhere in between.
What I like is they built that, and they use the word, they built that community without having any physical place. They only started doing the pop-up shops. They have a fixed location out in Mahon, but they started doing the pop-up shops. They started doing the hikes and the walks and stuff after nearly.
They did, but I mean, what's incredibly impressive, like I can guarantee you, if they went to any consultant in the country and they said, we want to open up retail, physical retail, every consultant would have said, you are insane. You have got a good brand here and you're about to kill it. And they've made it they've completely flipped it. It's the Apple side of things. People are going in, they're feeling the quality of the product, they're getting a sense of the place, and then they've got their brand. I know you said community and stuff like that. To be fair, they are one of the few brands out there that I would say do actually have a bit of a community following with them. And then if you're getting Niall Horan involved, they've taken that from a kind of a pseudo international brand to a major player.
And the minute, all he has to do is just put out a post about them and the sales from it.
He has 44 million followers on Twitter.
That's all he has to do is put out one post. But they're only launched, in fairness, in a short space of time, they're only launched in 2017, and even early days, they got Brian O'Driscoll on as...
Big difference now between Brian O'Driscoll and Niall Horan and now.
There is, but what I'm saying is early doors, they went in and they got... it probably wasn't cheap to get him on board, but they got him on as a bit of a brand. I think it was an unusual type. It was like community development or something. It was
community
that kind of
ambassador or something
like that. Yeah, but to get someone of his nature on very, very early drove them. Even that got him a lot of publicity at the start. I don't know if he's still involved in it, but no, this is a major move for them.
We'll ask them on the show. Maybe they'll bring Niall on.
Yeah, it was actually interesting. If it was about a year ago, I think you were there. I was on a panel talk with the two lads, and just hearing their stories about about starting. It was actually on myself, the two lads, and Stephen Ryan. It was great crack.
The Cork community is really big, isn't it? For fuck's sake.
But we got they were talking all about starting up and as you said, about should they and shouldn't they go down the retail route and stuff like that. But I think it's one of the things I'm actually annoyed about, and not annoyed about, but I'm waiting for it to open, is I don't like the whole idea of shopping online for clothes. I liked, as you said, going in, feeling, touching, seeing them, trying them on. It just hasn't took off with me.
Shopping for jeans online's a pain.
It is. So I think that's something that no matter how much culture changes in terms of online shopping, you're always going to need a physical store.
Yeah, well, I mean, to be fair, people kept on talking about this big digital revolution, and if you're not online, blah blah blah. Before the pandemic, digital penetration across all retail was only at 10% or something. It was now it's up towards 30-35% now. I don't have the stats off the top of my head, but this move towards digital, it is important for brand building and e-commerce and stuff like that. But I mean, the amount of shift towards digital is often overstated in particular product categories, and that's clothing is definitely one of them.
Jumping back a couple of weeks ago, moving on to the next topic, we said we were going to send an email off to someone. We were going to invite Mr. Trump onto the podcast. Unfortunately, he hasn't come back to us.
He didn't fucking respond. No.
He didn't respond. Didn't even courtesy of a feck off.
Prick.
So yeah, we talked about his website that was basically what was it? A news and information site about his presidency, but you could invite him to events. But following on from that, in the next couple of hours of us recording this podcast, the Facebook Oversight Board, which I never heard of, is
the biggest joke of all time.
They're announcing if he is allowed to post again on Facebook.
They're going to leave him back on.
Do you think so?
100%. Facebook. This is the antichrist of all.
So it's different to Twitter. So Twitter, he's gone.
Yeah.
But Facebook, his page is still active. He's just not allowed to post. So people are allowed to go on and comment on previous posts or whatever. But basically, this Facebook Oversight Board, which was only set up last year, is basically so I think I have it here. It's basically an independent group of experts from all around the world, and they're tasked with reviewing major content decisions. Basically, something not drunken pictures on a Saturday night that got a report or a ban. This is stuff that is affecting a lot of people in terms of religious and political hate speech, violence, racism. COVID misinformation was one of the main reasons this was set up. But they're basically sitting down and discussing whether he should be on it or not.
Yeah, like they've been in place for a year. What have they done? They've done nothing. There's still a huge amount of misinformation about COVID. There's still huge amount of online bullying, harassment. They've done nothing. Messenger for Kids is still active, as far as I'm aware. They announced a couple of weeks ago, I think we had it on the podcast, that they were launching Instagram. Was it Instagram for Kids or something along those kind of lines? Yeah, so this oversight committee isn't exactly doing anything. Like, you mean, and even if they do allow him back on, like, there's many elephants in this room here that they've completely ignored. Like, if they do it, it'll be because they want a good PR and publicity out of it, and they'll ignore all of the bigger issues that are going on, and it'll be, the Facebook Oversight Committee are doing their job. These guys aren't doing their fucking jobs at all. Like, simple as that.
Apparently, I thought when I first read it that, the Facebook Oversight Board, I thought they were a committee that work for Facebook or whatever, like kind of a top level thing.
They pretty much are.
No, but according to their website, it must be true.
Independent.
They're funded by an independent trust, Zuckerberg, and supported by an independent company that is separate from Facebook, and its decisions are binding. It sounds like Judge Judy at the end of it. So basically they're deciding. So we'll probably have that on next week, what the decision was. So
they'll let him back on.
Bets down.
They'll let him back on.
He's back
100%.
Okay.
Let him back on again. And even if he's not, they should keep him off, because with the presidency, as bizarre as this might say, he did have some constraints on him. Like, there was obviously people in his ear going, you cannot say this, you cannot do this. Now, there was a limit to that, because you saw how quickly, he basically incited a riot in the Capitol.
I always just laugh.
If you were the head of security for him, you was this guy is I'm trying to...
I want a raise.
Exactly, yeah.
But I always laugh when you think about, his digital marketing advisor, whoever it was, I couldn't even say social media manager because he was doing it himself apparently, but could you imagine every time you're sitting in the lobby thinking he's in the bathroom with his phone? What is he doing?
What's he doing now? What's he tweeting? Do you know what's he going to say now? But no, he's dangerous. The thing here is that there is now in America a very, very heavily armed and aggressive far-right movement, and they are still very much supporting him. And it may not necessarily be him is the next president, even though I'm still convinced if he's in good health, he will run again.
So we talked about it here. It looks like his daughter is probably going to line up to go for it, isn't she?
Christ almighty. Oh, fucking hell.
Anyway.
But the problem here is that even if he is a president, okay, he can't make decisions, but the problem in America isn't necessarily policy decisions. It's this ideology which is running through that country and dividing it. And as long as you have the Facebooks and your Instagrams and your WhatsApps and your Twitters of this world allowing for this incitement of hatred online, these divisions are only going to get deeper and they're going to get worse. Now, I would also take some credence in the argument that, these divisions always existed and social media just now allows people to communicate those outwards. But look, there's loads of studies there around polarization and stuff. We spoke about loads of other podcasts. I'm not going to go into it again, but no, I reckon they'll leave him back on.
We'll see what happens next week. So following on another Facebook news, they are now testing. We talked about this early podcast with ourselves about, I can't remember what they were doing, but basically Facebook are bringing out they're testing at the moment video speed dating app called Sparked. It's a new one coming out. So they're what's your thoughts on that?
Consultant spent about 40 seconds coming up with that name anyway.
Sparked, yeah.
So what does it do? What's the difference?
It's basically Facebook's internal house team. Basically, they're an experimental team. They're working on it at the moment. It's basically going to give you a 4-minute speed video dating in front of someone, and if that goes well, you'll be scheduled for a 10-minute second date, and after that, what's interesting is it's actually specifically pushing you towards exchanging contact information, but via Instagram, email, or iMessage. It's pushing you more down the Instagram. Email or iMessage is what they came out and said, but
I
Instagram
thought it was all
over Facebook.
I thought it was all video based.
It's video, but giving your information, so it's not done through your main Facebook profile. It's you have to have a profile to create as a separate profile on this app.
Yeah.
But the follow-on connection side of things, when you actually connect with someone, it's actually being done through Instagram. They're trying to push people down Instagram instead of Facebook. So it's interesting, but yeah, no, they're going down this road. I think they're definitely taking up on the video side of it. It's all going to be video. We talked here before about dating app like normal, like a Tinder kind of version of it. But this is purely down the video.
That is so. It is an interesting differentiator because even, and I don't use dating apps, because I can't. so.
You nearly said that seriously there.
But if you said I am socially incapable of talking to anyone, even over a screen, but if you're flicking left and right, so it's again with Tinder, it's done purely based on it's hot or not, right?
Yeah.
I'm attracted to this person, not attracted to this person. With a video, there's an element of, if you're putting a video of yourself up online saying my name is Dave and I like marketing.
From what I got from this though, it's actually live. You're actually talking to someone it's a speed dating.
No, but I presume that you have an initial video which is kind of an introduction to yourself, and then if you
I don't think
no,
so.
it's all live like.
No, I think it's you're planted in front of someone for 4 minutes to talk like a normal speed dating situation, and then if that works, you're scheduled in for another 10 minutes. So there's no. Is from what, it could be totally wrong, but that's what I gathered from it.
I think as a dating platform would work, as in terms of it's very clever. I can see how it would work better than something like Tinder, which is basically a lot of people on Tinder are just swiping left and right to see how many people think that they're not the ugliest person in the world, right? So there's these many people like me, I'm not going to message any of them, but I've gotten the social affirmation that I need, and therefore I'm happy to move on. Whereas if you're doing it on video, there's an element of buy-in there. Do you know what I mean? So there's probably something more kind of there's something probably a bit more immersive about this. Now, like, as well as that too, you would imagine that it's going to match you with people who are very aligned to you anyway, because Facebook obviously is all your data, right? So they're going to know that this person's into sport, this person watches this kind of film, this person spends X amount of time with their friends, and so on and so forth. So therefore you would imagine the algorithm that is going to match people up is going to be quite powerful. So then if you have this video element built into it as well, I can see how it could work. I'd say Tinder are worried. I'd say Bumble are worried.
But see, it's not so much that it's a new platform launching onto the market. You have the backing of Facebook.
If Facebook say we're going to do this, then all of a sudden the market cap of all those companies just fall through the roof overnight.
It's interesting when they launch their own apps, or get behind another app with the money they have. It's not a new. We've seen so many come and go in the last couple of years. That they've just fall by the wayside. Even this whole thing of Bebo is meant to be starting back up. It's very quiet to start back up. There was huge hype about it a few weeks ago.
Oh, I'm all for it.
You're all
all for it.
You have to be invited.
Do you want to be in my second half?
No, you're
do you want to be in my top 16?
I had enough that I have to listen to every week. But one person that could try the app, they could give him a go on it is Mr. Bill.
Bill's after he's getting a divorce, isn't he?
Isn't it? Yeah. They're getting a divorce.
The second tech titan, because Jeff.
Oh, he went a couple of weeks ago, didn't he?
No, it's about a year ago. I would say at this stage. Yeah. I mean, it must be like if you read, they said we're still going to work each other, and the Bill and Melinda, I think it is
Bill and Melinda, the Gates Foundation.
Foundation,
that's
stuff like that.
Fully funded by Warren Buffett.
I mean, they kind of really painted a picture of, this is grand and rosy in the garden, and all the rest of it. It must be. It's a lot different getting a divorce when you're a billionaire than you are.
He's worth over 134 billion.
Yeah, so I mean, look, it could be for tax purposes.
Oh, is it?
Who knows? I don't know that. I don't know Bill Gates and Melinda Gates' fucking relationship life.
Big decision for tax purposes.
But to be fair as well, on another serious note, and you could see it, someone who's been in business for as long as they have been, because it's a double act, right? There's no way that there is someone involved in Microsoft where it's not a double act. And same with Jeff Bezos and his wife. I cannot remember what her name is. But apparently she was heavily involved in Amazon, particularly at the start, but then the running of it as well. But when you have high power couples like that, which are solely driven by business, you can see how the relationship element of that obviously is and we've all seen, there's people who are married to the job and the relationship just does not sustain itself after a number, because you're dedicating and if you're running, again, two of the biggest companies in the world, it's going to take an impact.
It's not a small local business.
No, it's not that. It's not that surprising, I don't think. And I've nothing else to comment on it.
Nothing else to comment on it.
No.
I mentioned there about Warren Buffett, actually. He donated something like a third of his wealth to their foundation, basically to get them up and going off the ground.
Yeah, I'll donate a third of my wealth. I don't have fucking 100 billion left over.
I was going to say, it's actually there's clips on YouTube and stuff of the two of them. They're actually great friends, but just sitting down for chats about business and stuff like that are actually really interesting to watch. So, what other news have you got?
There was actually, just before we're on the dating stuff there, I thought this is a very, I apologise now for all of our
Think about it before you say
for
it.
all of our international audience, but there was something came out there last week. It was the Catholic Church, the Bishops' Council for Education, was after releasing their new sex education fucking policy for primary schools. Jesus fucking Christ, welcome to 1943. Like, it was a disgrace. I couldn't believe it. I was reading it and I was kind of going, because you forget.
Were you having a top up?
You forget how bad primary school was for that type of thing. Just so like, it was incredible. I was reading this going, this is like, we are still, as a country who's meant to be going in the right direction, we are still so far behind. There was one line I tweeted about, actually I only got one like. Fucking got it. It was one line in there which was sex is a gift from God, something like that.
Oh, I seen you tweet that.
I responded, well, God would want to revise his gift giving policy fairly fucking sharpish after the year that us single Pringles have gone through with COVID. I mean, for the love of Jesus, can you imagine teaching a fucking 12, 13-year-old this? Like, of course you're not going to grab their attention. Sex education
this week.
in this school, in this country, is an utter, absolute abomination.
It's not something we're going to fix on Social Antics.
We should start a campaign right here, right now.
No, we've done that enough before.
There was another line in there about they're not going to mention the LGBT crowd at all. They're going to say these couples may exist in the same way that Jesus would, I assume. Do you know what I mean? Like, may exist. It's just I was reading it, and again, I don't really look at, like, I don't spend, like, I am an educator, right? So this stuff, I looked at it and I was kind of like, has education moved on? And I was like, no, it hasn't. It's still as bad as it ever was. It's an absolute fucking dig. Like, do you remember those terrible videos? They were appalling. Like, they were so, I'd say, looking back, they're the funniest things of all time. Like, oh my God,
have a look for next week. Any other news there pop up? We'll move off that fairly quickly now.
Oh, fuck it. Me notes are flying all over the place here. Give me 2 seconds there now. It's very unprofessional. I'm out of practice.
Very unprofessional, yeah.
Out of practice. So we mentioned it a few times, but Deliveroo. So obviously this big year for them, because it was really the year that they needed to prove that we can make this profitable, because there's going to be so much traffic going onto their app. So they experienced year-on-year growth of 114% for Q1 of 2021, with 71 million orders in total and 30 million across Ireland and the UK. Now, importantly with this, which I think is important for their overall valuation, and their IPO plummeted the first day by about 30%. It was seen as like the worst ever IPO for a relatively well-known company. Like, it just completely tanked. But their active customer base has increased to about 91%. Now, the biggest problem that Deliveroo, Uber Eats, Just Eat and all these have is that they're basically kicking the shit out of each other in terms of their advertising spend, and that is just completely cannibalizing the market. And I think Just Eat might be making a small profit, but Uber Eats are losing billions. Deliveroo, I don't think it's billions they're losing, but it's in the multiple millions anyway, that they're losing every single year. And I think it's very, very interesting that even in an environment whereby you could say that the market was capped in terms of, like, you will never get an opportunity for more people to be having deliveries ordered to their house than during a pandemic. And even within that, they still couldn't turn it into a profitable enterprise. And I think the stock market is now showing that. Like, investors are going, this is not a viable business. So it's going to be interesting in the next couple of years. Is there a consolidation there? Do one of these companies go, and then Just Eat or Uber can basically take up the slack there? And like we saw Grubhub were acquired there as well a number of months ago. And again, I think there will be a bit of consolidation in that market over the next number of years, because there's no way that they can keep on sustaining the losses that they are when it's kind of been proven during a pandemic
it was their year to shine and it didn't happen.
I mean, in reality,
they're going to drop off. Like, but like when things open back up, people are going to go back out into the pubs 100%. And the clubs. Like, you know, so they're not going to. Their numbers are going to drop. They're going to see the numbers falling. They
are, yeah. Like, I mean, their whole idea is that if we acquire enough users, over time our customer acquisition cost drops, our order what do you want to call it, order kind of value increases per as a ratio to acquisition costs, and then lifetime value increases over time. But they're not showing it. They're just not. So it's going to be going to be interesting to see how that market consolidates itself over the next couple of months.
Interesting. Anything else pop up?
Another business model kind of one. We're come a long way from Facebook dating. But the Tesco business model, so interestingly, so the year-on-year revenue is up about 7%. No surprise there. Retail has done very, very well the last year since COVID.
Apparently what did I hear today? Last month was the busiest month in retail since the start of the pandemic. Was last month.
It doesn't surprise people barbecuing and all the rest of it. They're starting to, and I think that's gonna. I think that might sustain itself a bit.
The start of the pandemic was the busiest, obviously, with everything was going out of stock and stuff. But since then, last month was the busiest.
And I can see certain, and I'm not one of these people that says, "Oh, it's never going to go back to normal." It's going to go back to normal-ish. Do you know what I mean? This is not going to sustain. But there are certain lifestyle things that have changed that I think are going to impact upon people's kind of leisure consumption in the future. So the amount of people that I know, for example, who've learned how to cook over the last year. Or who would never have had, for want of a better word, dinner. Middle class people call it dinner parties. I call it a couple of lads coming over for a couple of cans. But
you order a chipper.
Exactly, yeah. So there's a very, very kind of an interesting kind of lifestyle dynamic there where people think will opt for the more home-based consumption than going out all the time. I'm not saying that they're going to completely switch in this direction, but I think there's going to be more of that happening. And because of that, I can see the kind of increase in revenue in the retail side of things kind of sustaining itself. But interestingly, even though their revenue is up, the operating profit is down about 14%. Now, there's a couple of reasons for that. One, the cost of operating under COVID. So obviously with your hand sanitizers, cleaning, extra staff and so on and so forth. That's one element of it. But also obviously e-commerce businesses are less profitable than traditional bricks and mortar retailers, particularly when there's a hybrid model going on there where you're still paying for all of the front of house stuff, but then you've also got the reduced margins in terms of delivery costs and so on and so forth. So, and advertising and stuff like that. So I think it's going to be interesting to see in the next number of years, particularly at Amazon and Amazon Go and stuff like that. Like the middle bit of the store hasn't really been innovated in at all for the last, like, God knows how long. Like just the middle bit of the store, like in the back end you've got all your EDI, the front end you've got your contactless tills, your people-less tills and all the rest of it. I'm sure there's a technical name for that.
Self-service
checkout. That's the one. It's been a long pandemic and my brain doesn't work anymore. But I think it's really interesting. So one, how these companies innovate in terms of their e-commerce offering, and then also are they going to do anything to start competing possibly with Amazon? If Amazon, now we don't know yet really, are Amazon going to kind of roll out on a global scale this Amazon Go thing, but is there going to be innovation in the central bit of the store beyond what's kind of there at the moment? I think that's going to be interesting, and you can even see it now with a lot of like your Duns in particular are going very experiential. Like they don't want people ordering online, they want people in the store buying more effectively, because it changes the whole strategy. If you've got, and let's just take the 15% of the market order their groceries online, and I picked that figure out of nowhere. If you have a scenario whereby you have your shopping list and you save that shopping list, there's no opportunity there for surplus buying necessarily, or impulse buying I should say. So therefore the brands that you would have been loyal to at the time when you created that list, you kind of stay loyal to, because you're not picking out your list every week, you're just reordering. So therefore that changes the whole strategy that brands need to have in terms of how do we get ourselves in front of these consumers to either switch their behaviour, or what do the retailers do to encourage impulse purchases, cross-sell, upsell and so on and so forth. So I think that is going to be an area of strategic focus over the next number of years in terms of how that's going to change things.
In terms of opening back up there, you reminded me, I saw a thing during the week about Pennies, that they're offering appointment, that you can go onto their system now. Basically the next level of opening back up for them was to do appointment based shopping.
Might go in there and say, Find me
how is
your,
there a system
your
meant to handle?
finest €1 socks, please. I'm going to try them on and parade myself.
I was just amazed at how is their website going to handle the amount of people that go to out of nowhere just to book an online appointment like
I
that.
don't.
It's going I think it was great bit of publicity for them.
No, I'm working with a brand at the moment, and they will be starting to do appointment bookings and stuff like that. But it works because it's a high end women's fashion brand.
But I don't think they're getting the numbers that Pennies get. Like,
but that's
they
my.
want to worry about their website crashing.
But that's my point though. Like, it makes sense for certain businesses.
100,000 people within 30 seconds click on.
See how it works. Yeah, would you book into Pennies to get a kind of a lifestyle? I don't know. Maybe you would.
Personal shopper. Just a security guard following you around until you get out.
I think Pennies is the one thing now that, as a consumer of the hospitality industry, Pennies now made me mad. Like when you had the pubs and the cafes closed, and you saw the absolute pandemonium inside in Primark or Pennies. You were just like,
Primark, you're getting very posh.
Isn't Primark
it
is
Pennies?
Pennies?
Yeah, but it's Pennies here. It's not Primark.
Oh, there's a Primark out in Man Point, isn't there?
What?
I thought there maybe there is.
No, there's not. Primark across everywhere else. It's Pennies
in
Ireland.
So Primark is Protestant Pennies, basically.
Exactly. We'll stick with that.
So yeah, the other one then, which was again, I think it's kind of a sign of the times more so than anything else. But Hot House 13 has been discontinued by Diageo in the UK.
No harm they could do it here as well. It's rank.
It is, but I think the interesting thing about that is there was a period there where Carlsberg brought out Carlsberg Unfiltered, and you'd hop out, and they were basically it's been a while now since I drank Carlsberg, but it's been a while since I drank Carlsberg. But isn't their whole drink changed? They don't have a regular Carlsberg anymore. Am I right in saying that? No, they have Carlsberg.
Do they?
Yeah,
they done a huge push on the
Unfiltered. Yeah, they did. Yeah. But that was aligned with, they all did it, where they tried to bring out a kind of a crafty-ish kind of alternative.
Guinness have been the most at it.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think that there's a lot. It's interesting that
Hop House was the first real.
It was. Yeah.
Proper kind of craft brew from a major,
a craft brew from one of the world's biggest companies.
I'm trying to think of the right way of even saying it. But I thought it was absolutely disgusting. But they done it very cleverly when they brought it out first. I was working actually in the bar up in Dublin when it first came out, and they literally, the money they pumped into bars to plaster it everywhere was phenomenal, I'd say. Yeah. Oh no, and as a marketing exercise, you can see how it would have worked for a while. But I think what's another thing is interesting, and this is more of an observation than anything that I've got kind of data research on, but when people have been drinking at home and they've been going into their off license, I think people actually started educating them a little bit more about the different types of craft beers, and this has resulted in the non-craft beers, like your hop houses, being really, really damaged. Because if you take me for example, I wouldn't have really been a consumer of Brewdog or White Wolf or any of these Rascals, any of these kind of Irish. Well, no, Brewdog isn't Irish, but any of these kind of craft brands. Franciscan Well, their own by Molson Coors. Not a craft brew,
but that's the interesting thing, is that
they maintained that small.
They did. It's still it was an acquisition rather than a brand that was created. And I wonder, is that kind of a sign of where things are going to go into the future, given that this brand has died effectively.
Yeah.
Finally, and this is in my wheelhouse, European Super League. Have you been keeping any attention on it, given that you're a sports enthusiast like yourself?
I am, No, I saw something about it during the week, and I haven't a clue what happened.
So basically, I think it's an interesting one. I won't spend it because I could spend a whole podcast talking about this. But
switch off my side,
and you'll switch off yours straight away. You might as well turn it off now. Just let me yap away.
See you next week, lads.
But basically, you had a scenario whereby, do you know what, actually, let's just get in a guest and talk about it instead. I'll get one of my football friends on and we can talk about it, because me trying to hop this off you is going to be a complete fucking disaster. Alright, fair enough. European Super League, we'll talk about it in a couple of weeks' time, and we're way over time anyway, aren't we?
We are, yeah. Have enough of listening to you.
Fuck for that, yeah. We call it quits.
Thanks very much for everyone for listening. We'll talk to you next week. Take care.
See you later, guys.